never forget. That's what this episode is all about. Now, that's what every episode is all about. And if you're new here, let me convince you to watch the whole thing. This is Crowdfunding Countdown, where we take a look at every single board game campaign that is finishing up in the next week. That's right, we look at things at the end of their life cycle so that we can see what sort of stretch goals they've unlocked, see if they're even going to be funding so we don't bother wasting all of your time. And I'm going to break all of those things in this episode because I'm filming it a little bit earlier than I usually do. I try to film these the weekend before this comes out every Monday morning, but due to my filming setup right now, I'm out of my studio. It makes sense for me to film it now a little bit earlier, and you'll be able to calculate that by seeing how many days remain when we take a look at all of the campaigns. And I do say all, but I have cut out some truly terrible ones because we have enough good ones this week, or ones that I'm actually really excited to check out, to fill a whole week. We're still going strong. We're at least making it to episode 70, probably next week. I would guess next week will be our last crowdfunding countdown. By then, things usually start finishing up, but you never know, depending upon what's on the horizon. And the thing about filming this so early is that Elden Ring actually launches tomorrow, and if I know Steamforged Games, it'll only be a 10-day campaign, so not even gonna look at it this time. I'll try to make a designated video for Elden Ring when it presumably crosses that $1 million threshold. Perhaps you've already seen it. Those are the only thoughts you're going to get on it. None of them are going to go here, and let's face it, it wasn't going to be the pick for me or you anyway because it's too expensive for what it's worth. But before we get into the week, I want to give a huge shout out to my newest patron, Shani. Thank you so much for jumping on board, and as always, thank you to all of my patrons. You are the best people I know. You really are. You're the best people I've ever met in my whole life, and I have met some truly wonderful people. But I'd like to tell you all right now that I like you more than my mother and father, which is odd because they're also patrons. So I don't know how that time loop works, but what can you do? But seriously, it really means the absolute world to me that I'm able to consistently shout out patrons, and we have developed this cool community, and that some of you out there go the extra mile and support me being able to take the time that I take on looking into these games and doing these videos and producing content for the channel and just growing the channel as much as possible. And to that, I will always be grateful. Enough with the mushy stuff. Let's get right into this week because we got a big one. That's what she said. She didn't. There are at least 16 tabs open on my computer. There were something like 24, but I did a very large filter of no, not worth talking about, not worth talking about. So if that was one of your campaigns, well, I'm sorry. Be better. But to be fair, I probably got it wrong because I never learned how to read. First off, of course, we're going to start in with Heroes of Might and Magic. That's finishing up tomorrow. And I did the 5 reasons you shouldn't back, which, again, if you haven't checked that out, check it out now. You might still have time to enter the giveaway depending on when you see this video. I will be doing the drawing for the giveaway when this video is released, on the day this video is released. So go check that out. Make sure you drop a comment. Make sure you subscribe. And this one, honestly, I won't... Oh, they've had some updates. Look at that. Kind of showcases a little bit more what they have on offer. I think this game looks good. I think it looks a solid good and nothing more. At least for my take. Everyone was saying, "Oh, you didn't mention that there's a giant battleground expansion that makes the gameplay more interesting." And I say, "Yeah, I didn't mention it because they weren't really talking about it." And instead, they were framing it as sort of a new experience instead of actually something that can go in with the main game, or at least that's how I interpreted it. But if you don't know about Heroes Might and Magic, you are, let's see if they've got any little graphics. Using advanced rules, deploy your miniatures on the battlefield board and ride into combat, so you can have this mini setup on the side, which really emphasizes that this isn't a 3-player game because you do not want to wait for someone to play their own little war game while you just sit on the sidelines. And you know what would be so lovely about this Battlefield campaign is if that in any of the FAQs, they would say what it did, rather than just saying, oh yeah, there's going to be something really cool. Or if to anyone or to anyone's comments who've been continually asking for more information about the Battlefield campaign, at least on the 5 reasons you shouldn't back, the overwhelming majority was like, oh yeah, I asked about the Battlefield campaign, or expansion rather, I keep saying campaign. I asked about the Battlefield expansion, and they were very vague and didn't tell me anything about it, which to me leads me to think that it's not even fully formed, which is fine, right? Like, this is Kickstarter. You are bringing something to light. You shouldn't necessarily have to have a fully formed game. If you're banking on this one thing to fix the issues that you have, because my personal issue was I wasn't that interested in the lane battling system, and you have to pay an additional cost in order to fix that base game experience, I don't think that's necessarily a sound purchase. I just don't. When it's an additional 20 bucks. See, and this is where it throws me, because it says introduces an all-new hex-based game mode for miniatures. So a game mode, to me, sometimes indicates a completely different game. Like, oh, we're going to play the Battlefield game mode, and so you just play on the battlefield. That's how I was kind of interpreting it. I don't know, like, I think the core of it looks fun. I like the deck building aspect. I really like the resource management, like I said, and I really like the exploring the map and how there's going to be a bunch of stuff. I'm sure I'm giving you a seizure right now. I'm so sorry about that as I try to scroll to the top of the page. I like that on every tile there seems to be a lot of stuff, and going around in exploration will feel fun. I think that's the sense you want in this sort of game as you build up your resources and then clash. But if the clash isn't that fun, I'm not that interested. But maybe you are. So if you are, check that out. That finishes Tuesday, November 29th at 3 p.m. Moving along to Oceans Legends of the Deep, which is a standalone board game in the award-winning Evolution series, 1 to 4 players. So if you're unfamiliar, Evolution is a series of games, and that was way back on Kickstarter much earlier in the year. I was supposed to get a review copy for Evolutions, and it didn't arrive. It got lost in the mail, and so I never got to review it, which is a shame because I thought it looked good. I have heard that Oceans is the better version of that, and so now we just have a standalone version of Oceans, a new expansion. No, maybe not an expansion, just a standalone board game. Let's check it out. Let me investigate, and I will get back to you. I love this already, because basically the premise is, yeah, Oceans was fine, but it was based in evolution and, realistic animals. And we don't want that. We want a giant walking Sobek crocodile and this giant Bakunawa, a big old fish to rage around in the ocean. So I'm already on board for this change. Like, science? Blah. Boring. Give us some mythical creatures. That's what sells. And this makes me so mad, because it's not a standalone board game. Oceans is a standalone board game. Legends of the Deep is not a standalone board game. This is garbage marketing, and I hate this campaign. I do. I hate this sort of stuff. It's saying, oh yeah, Legends of the Deep, it's a standalone game. No, it's not. It's an expansion for a standalone game. This sort of stuff is important to specify and makes me really, really angry. Because all it is it's just adding these additional monsters to your already existing Oceans game. See, 24 unique legends. You can swap them in and out. They'll give you unique powers. This is also annoying to me that the solo mode is more expensive and you have to purchase an additional solo mode to play this game. I don't see 139 backers want the solo expansion. 863 backers want the Legends of the Deep expansion, or 2,600 of them want all of that sort of upgrade, both of them together, along with some game trays, I think. And this just looks like a real piddly solo campaign expansion. I don't like this campaign. So you could pay $85 US for this big legendary version of Oceans, and Oceans looks good. It's something I've wanted to try. So $115 Canadian plus shipping, which we'll talk about in a second. I realized I didn't explain how to play Oceans. This is a fairly decent step-by-step. You are going to either create a new species or add a trait to your species, and this is the exact same as Evolution. It's the same system. It's been around for a while. And then you have the choice of how you're going to interact with everyone else around the board. Usually you'll attack them if your species is better than them, or you'll just try to survive and get better and like create an ultra species as you evolve. Like, that's what I like about the game, is that you're getting these different weird traits and you're evolving into this cool, unique thing every time. I think that's really cool. But this solo mode just seems like one of the most boring solo modes I've ever seen. You'll have somebody attacking you and somebody stealing food from the center, basically. Seems like you could just figure out a proxy for this and not pay 20 bucks to get it into your game. What's the shipping? Rulebook's also 3/4 down the page. Perfect. Shipping for the Legendary Edition, 12 bucks. That's not bad. Shipping to Canada, 15 bucks. So they have subsidized. They've said we subsidized the prices, and that makes sense because that's pretty cheap for what you're getting. But keep in mind, the Legendary Edition, it's not going to be a giant box. It's probably going to be around the same size as a regular Oceans box. So 15, so about 100 bucks, 130-ish Canadian. Or You can pay 130-ish Canadian for this extra thing, or just pay $50 Canadian and get it from 401 Games. It's a no-brainer. Maybe Oceans, if you hadn't marketed this as a standalone game when it's actually the campaign for an expansion and a legendary edition, I might have been a little bit more nicer to you, but you know what? I don't care. Trying to get a copy of Evolution was very annoying and took up a lot of my time. So I also don't care in regards to that. Guess North Star will never try sending me anything again, but they haven't since that other debacle, so what do I care? I'm not actually that salty. I'm just like a standalone board game in the award-winning Evolution series. That is Oceans, but Oceans Legends of the Deep is not, and I think that distinction is rude, and they're pushing it like you must get this legendary edition for it to be complete, and you absolutely don't. The legendary cards seem cool, but they seem also like just another element that you don't need to pay $140 to get that. If you're interested in Oceans, just pay the $50 at your store. Let's move on. That finishes tomorrow, Tuesday at 5 p.m. Now we're moving on to On the Underground, Paris and New York, which I've heard good things about. I haven't looked into, but I'm going to do that right now. See you in a second. See, On the Underground's description says, returns with 2 new maps set in storied metropolises. Way to be clear, On the Underground. Certainly will recommend this over Oceans. I do love that the theme of this game is you're trying to get passengers, you're trying to make the most effective and easiest route for passengers to take to get to a certain destination. But it's not passengers, it's passenger, and it's this one meeple that you're moving all around the board on these various maps. And I just think that's so funny to consider the actual theming of the scenario where it's just this one person. It's one person desperately trying to go to everywhere in New York or in Paris. They have to get there. They're running around. They have a very busy day. And you as the construction team are just erecting these tunnels in front of their eyes as they blindly walk towards the abyss. And your construction team is working so hard to keep up. I just think that's very funny. You also get dual cover technology. So I guess it's one of those flippy things. I'm in. And look at that. It is a standalone game. They emphasize it as well. They didn't even emphasize it in their tagline. They emphasized it later on, explaining clearly why it's not an expansion and almost apologizing for it not being an expansion. Well, you know what? London and Berlin was the first one. You know what? New York and Paris, you got my vote. Oh, and a wonderful breakdown of what's included in the deluxe edition and the deluxe bundle versus the basic edition. I love this chart right there. I would have loved to see gameplay first, especially a rulebook first, but you're doing better than North Star Games, obviously a subsidiary of Queen Games. Oh, I love this variation of the amount of turns. The last player always gets to take 5 turns on their first turn, 5 actions on their first turn, and the first player always gets to take 3 actions. I think that's really neat. That's a cool balancing mechanic. I was playing some games a couple weekends ago with some friends, which I'll have edited a conversation about prototypes and game design and when to produce a prototype, or just a fun conversation that I had with my friend Reed as well. That'll either be coming out this week or already came out. But it was at the same time, and we were talking a lot about mitigating that first player turn, because we played Le Havre, not Reed and I, but some other people. We played Le Havre, and there was no offset of first player getting less than the other players, and that did feel significant because there were certain buildings that were up. Although everybody gets the same amount of turns in Le Havre, it felt significant to get that first choice before anyone else. So I like this. I like this specific designation, and that feels like a huge swing, especially in a 2-player game, to have 2 extra actions to offset going second. Unfortunately, the rulebook is not that great, but it's a very, there aren't many pages. You can see I've just scrolled through them all, and yet it took me a very long time to figure out what the heck you're even supposed to be doing. You can do 2 things on your turn. The main thing you're going to be doing is laying tracks down. But you can also take these branch tiles, which will let you place a different connecting thing out of somewhere else, basically branching off from somewhere. Otherwise, you can only extend from the end of a line, which is designated as only one of your tracks is touching a specific spot. If there are 2 tracks, well, then it's kind of a middle of a line, and you have to be branching out of that. Makes sense now, but it certainly did not reading it. And then the passenger movement feels a little bit fiddly. the passenger wants to move to the closest place using the least amount of lines. So in this example, he'd move, boom, he only has to take one line. And then he can go to the other lines because he can take 2 lines of each different type to get to either one of these 2 spaces. And then so the person whose turn it was would get to decide how to move them. And I think that's interesting. It feels like it would be more interesting at a lower player count, he says with a question mark. I'm not sure though, because it might be better with more players and you can have a more cramped board. I'm not a huge fan of the board design. You can see that these lines here indicate how many tracks can be laid from places, and I guess when everything's on there it makes sense, but I just find that with the spaces that it generates, it feels like that could be confusing to people as well. But you can play it on Tabletopia, which I always really like to see because it makes it accessible, right? And shipping is all right. Again, they're subsidizing shipping costs. I think you're going to see a lot more of this maybe moving forward. People saying, listen, we are subsidizing the shipping costs. We're taking less profit. That's part of the crowdfunding model because you hopefully are making more profit than the retail stores anyway. So yeah, keep subsidizing that shipping cost. $9 to get to Canada, $9 to get to the US. To get to Canada, it's $24 or $14 if you have more than 150 Canadian backers. And what's kind of great about Kickstarter is you can check how many backers are from a specific location. Currently, there are 57 backers from Canada. So stuff like that if you wanted to figure it out. But I like how upfront they are with this shipping, and $9 to get to the US feels pretty decent. Although again, it's great for an existing thing. And 401 Games, you should be sponsoring me. Maybe I'll send you an email. I say this every time. Well, maybe Board Game Bliss should sponsor me instead. Well, maybe Miniature Market should sponsor me instead. There we go. On the Underground. Pre-order, out of stock, $27 US or retail price $40 US for the London Berlin version. And again, we're looking at 49 plus 9 shipping, so 58 minimum for US backers for the Paris, New York version. Is it that much of a deviation from the system or an improvement of the system? I don't know. I wouldn't say that it is. Anyway, that's enough time spent on that one. Geez, we gotta get through this a bit quicker. I'm sorry, let's motor it along. But if you are interested in that finishes Tuesday, November 29th at 11:59 p.m. On to the next one, which is A Wayfarer's Tale. It's a solo to 4-player game where you explore uncharted islands. I hate this. This makes me think I've got something on my screen right here. You don't. It's just the design. You explore uncharted islands, collecting treasure while avoiding monsters. That was a great video. If I didn't know it was print and play coming into this, I would have been surprised when the reveal was illuminated upon my head. This is another one of those $5, £5 print and plays. Hand drawn though, that's cool. I really like the art. This is neat. I think this is really all you do need to know. But I'll look at the rulebook if they have it. You choose from a shared pool of dice, you add 2 values together, and you enlist the services of an intrepid explorer to help you cross specific terrain. You see all these different explorers here. I assume you add the values into there, and then you navigate the different maps that are out there. Boom, discover new lands. How intuitive a rulebook is it? Where's the rulebook? Like, I understand there aren't that many rules, but it's still something that you'd want to see, or at least I'd want to see. You've got a bunch of reviews who will describe how to play, but I suppose they didn't want to put the rule book out because it's already bundled in their PDF bundle, or they haven't bundled it together yet, but there's no reason not to do it. Like, I get it. I just watched through a couple people reviewing it, talking about it. I get that in print and play, people are scared of putting out the rule book because they think, oh, if I give the rule book, then like it's not here. It's not here, right? Yeah. They're scared if I give away the rule book, then nobody will buy my game. And like, sure. But for me, it makes me less excited, and I wanted to be excited about this one because it is only $5. But if I don't see the way that it interacts, and if I can see, oh, okay, is it just rolling dice and adding numbers? Like, how are these going to work, and will they feel fun, right? Like, that's what I want to know. I don't want to know that they exist. I want to know if they will feel fun, and if it's worth my money. Like, it's £5, $8 Canadian. Sure, that's an easy enough gamble to take. I'm not a huge print and play guy either. So, I don't know, you have to let me know if this one looks good. This one looks visually better than a lot of these $5 print and plays. That is what I will say. But I just wish I could see more. But if you're interested in that, check that out. It's Wednesday, November 30th at 10:59 a.m. Moving along to the Castles of Mad King Ludwig Renovations and second edition. There's a second edition of Castles of Mad King Ludwig coming out, and there's also this Renovations expansion where you can renovate existing rooms. If you've already built a room and you think, I don't want to build another room, I just want to renovate the current room that I have, get more points that way, and give myself dual building types. It's $30, so that's 41 Canadian plus shipping. And that's too much. I already know that's too much. Like, if this is going to be a good expansion, it'll be in retail. So after shipping, what is it going to be? $60? Is this the first time I've seen shipping before the rulebook? Maybe there is no rulebook. Bet there won't be. And they're saying that they do not have an estimated shipping. They say, we don't know. We recommend giving us $1 so you can upgrade your level in the pledge manager once you know the cost. Well, you know what I recommend? Giving them no dollars, because you'll be able to get it at retail. And you can also go to the pledge manager and likely late back. That is the secret for the $1 pledge, is that the $1 pledge doesn't need to exist. The $1 pledge just allows you to be marketed to and say, hey, the pledge manager is open now, instead of you seeking it out yourself. No rulebook other than saying, listen, we're Bezier, you know the game, just buy it already. And 4,000 people have. This is giving you a chance to get that collector's edition that came out, the second edition they're calling it now, which they did way back at the beginning of 2021, which got it to you for $99, and now you can get it for $110. I mean, it's not horrible markup. I just think this is an awful campaign page, and nobody should get it here, and Castles is fine enough as the base game, so you should, again, get it at retail. But if you're interested in that, check that out. Wednesday, November 30th at 12 p.m. Like, I like Castles of Mad King Ludwig. I made my own insert for it, because I like it that much and I wanted to get it to the table more. And this actually got me really excited. $40 price point for the expansion for just a few tiles doesn't make me excited, right? But I like it, and I like Bezier games. I just don't think you need a deluxe version. But maybe you do. Maybe you love it. I quite enjoy it. I don't know if I'd say I love it. Some days I might say I love it. I just had a mental check-in. We'll see. Moving along to the Frosthaven Gloomhaven gaming kit. This isn't a board game, as you can see, because it's not Frosthaven and Gloomhaven on Kickstarter. And if it was, that would be a very bad funding goal for them. But this is just deluxeified organization that's going to cost you an enormous amount, more for less, lower price than retail, but still a stupid amount for these gorgeous wood dials. Look, $35 for 4 dials. That's horrible, but I know a lot of people will want it. Oh, this is cool that it's magnetic and you can build out your system, but like, how much is that going to cost? Let's guess. If this right here is presumably $10, this amount of wood, I'm going to say $60 for one setup. That's going to be my bet. Oh, we can do it individually, so let's count. 9 with an acrylic stand though. That's kind of cool. Plus 5, 14, 19, 24, 27, 31. Oh, we got to get the loot module in there. 33.5, 40. Got to get those class sigils. 50, $10 each. That finishes it off. 50, look at that. Oh, class coaster. You got to get a class coaster. 57.5. Plus, good thing that there are 16 class coasters in like each one. Yeah, $50. $69 Canadian. Plus shipping. Too much shipping. $60 value. Oh, look at that. And $50. Like, this is never anything I would buy, right? You can do the same thing with some foam core. Check out my how to make an insert and just make one for yourself. I made little things for my Gloomhaven game. I just made little boxes. And I keep all the stuff in them, and it works out fine. You know where I can put all the other components? On the table, because this also takes up more table space, which in Gloomhaven or Frosthaven, it's kind of at a premium. Some people will love this, some people will want this. I'm not the target audience, but I also recognize that you all have more money than I do, so maybe you're interested. If you are, that finishes Wednesday, November 30th at 1:01 p.m. Moving along, just quickly to the Thinning Veil, and this is 8 days to go. It's finishing next Wednesday, because I'm recording this, the Monday before my other crowdfunding countdown, episode 69. Didn't do enough of that during that episode. I didn't do any at all. That just got released. Well, it got released today, so that's when I'm looking at this. This is not going to fund. It won't. But I do want to point it out and highlight it a bit, because I just think it looks cool, and I'm very surprised that this isn't funding, because it looks like something that would be a slam dunk on Kickstarter. Yeah, I'm really surprised, because it does look cool, And obviously, I've got to talk about it because the rulebook is almost right at the top of the page. Way to go, Thinning Veil. You know I love you. This is why you are getting highlighted. And it's quite a nice rulebook, too. Like, very clear graphics on what all of the cards will mean and then explaining it later on. Like, especially for a pre-production rulebook, there's a lot of text. I don't mind text. This is how I write my emails, and everybody never reads them. So this seems accessible to me and not excessive. Here's where some of the hesitation comes for me. You're going to roll to generate activation cubes, and I like this a lot. I think this is a really unique way to approach one of these sorts of games. There's going to be kind of stages of which you can activate. So you roll your dice and you're like, okay, I'm activating here and here and here. But you can have enemy symbols that are rolled, and if you generate a lot of enemy symbols, you can just forfeit your turn. And I feel like that feels like it won't be that fun. That's an initial hesitation. And basically, you're going to roll to see what sort of things you can do in your turn. Combat, checking things out. I think the minis here look cool too. This is surprising to me that it hasn't funded, even though it is so expensive. Core game's £120, which is $191 Canadian, which makes me want to puke. But I know that a lot of people don't blink an eye at that price, as I'm sure we've seen with Elden Ring. I haven't looked at Elden Ring yet as of filming this video, but this looks better than Elden Ring. Again, know nothing of Elden Ring gameplay. This looks better than Elden Ring. 2 rulebook links. Thinning Veil. We might need to have some alone time. And then again, though, like, let's look at this. £35 to ship to the United States. £63 to ship to Canada, right? Like, there's zero chance I would ever be interested in this. I think there's zero chance a lot of people from the United States would be interested in this. It's like $160 for them. Maybe not. People don't bat an eye at those sorts of things. It feels like a very ambitious project. I understand why it's not funding. I also understand why it has to have such a large funding goal, and that's too bad because I think this looks cool, but I'll be interested to see it when it comes back, as I'm sure it will. But if you're interested in that, well, it doesn't matter because it's not going to fund. So you could back and be updated for when it launches again. That's basically the play here. Moving along to Panda Party. Basically the same genre, the card game, a pick up and play card game, as opposed to all of those other throw down and fight card games. That's how I play my card games. That's how I play Dutch Blitz, baby. Where adorable pandas eat pizza and party hard. Will you be a party animal or will you be a party pooper? How do they know she poops at parties? Okay, I haven't looked into this at all, but it says, in an alternate reality, pandas rule the earth, and they have discovered that eating pizza and donuts gives them powers. You don't have to make it into an alternate reality. You can just say, listen, pandas want to eat pizza and donuts, and people will go with you on this ride. There is too much backstory for this world, and I thought I would never say that. Just kidding, there can never be too much backstory. Embrace your panda world. I want to go there as well, and be a panda unicorn. Or the ever-elusive panda accountant. I think this might just fall under the bar of a funny card game because you're actually just using resources to collect these pandas and put them into your hand. I mean, how much are you? 35 Australian, 32 Canadian, probably 25 US. 22 US, look at that. Plus 12, so 34 US, 40 US to get to Canada. It's cute. Let's move on. I got nothing else. That finishes Wednesday, November 30th at 3:59 a.m. You know if you want it, you know if you don't. Next up, we have Gathering Gloom, a killer co-op game for 1 to 5 monsters, and I just took a while to look through this campaign page because I wasn't sure if this one was going to get cut. There is no rulebook, which I don't know if you know this about me, but I like to see them. So that's annoying. All you have is this sort of sketch of a game, which for $49, and it's going to be $16 in shipping to get to the US, so $65 will get you a cooperative game with a funny-ish theme. You're going to run around the board and draw a couple cards at the end. That's where the deck building comes in. You just get to draw it from a deck instead of actually choosing from a market of how to move your hand up. You basically can go to one location, do something, play all your cards, share cards with people who are there, resolve the crisis. There's always going to be crises that are popping up. These little villagers, they want your head because you're monsters, and they obviously want you to die. So you can either eat them or bribe them or do whatever you want. I like the sketch of it. I just don't think... I think you're getting a game where more art design would have helped. I understand the sort of video game 64-bit come to life art style, I guess, is how I would describe this. I don't know. I'm really torn on this one. I'm really torn on if it's like fine or not. I think there's something here. There's something here with the theme. There's something here with the simple co-op style, but I don't think it's enough to warrant your consideration. So now you know about it, and now you know to carry on with your day, I guess. Yeah, I'm moving on to Inheritance because you can get a wedding ring in every box. Look at that. If you want to get married, just buy 2 copies of Inheritance. They've got you covered. I was really excited by the concept of multi-use cards, but this just looks fine, if that. You've got your suitor, you've got your parents, and you got your people that you want to marry. These are your admirers. You've put them out at the beginning. And then you can play your cards to change the suit of who will be favored, so to put them down over there, or to use it for its ability. And do you know how much it is? It's $44 Australian, $40 Canadian. That's too much. Let's move on. This is one I should have cut. This is one that isn't reaching its funding goal, but I thought might cross the threshold because we're doing this in advance. I should have cut this one. Let me know if you cared about this section at all. Like the reason I keep these sorts of things in as we move over to the Adventures of Tenessee James, the board game, which also will not fund, but we're just going to talk about it briefly because one of my patrons was interested in it and told me to look at it. I probably wouldn't have looked at it if they hadn't pointed it out to me. Even though it's from a Canadian designer, one of the reasons I cover everything or try to cover most everything if there's something interesting to talk about or if I can make a dumb joke, right, is because I know some people might be scrolling through Kickstarter and be like, hey, is that good? And I guess this can serve as the resource to say that it's not. But I also am thinking that I should just not cover it and you can just assume. Or you can ask me in a comment if you want. I can say, oh, I missed it. Or, hey, I didn't miss it. Let me know moving forward into next year of Crowdfunding Countdown what if I should, again, be a little bit more curating than I already do. I kind of do curate, and I've been leaning towards that route just because there's some games that make me hate games and never want to play games again. And while sometimes that's entertaining, it's certainly not entertaining for me. So give me a reason to not look at them. No, but I also just don't want to be overly negative, right? Like the last couple two, I've been like, well, what is there that's nice to say? Because I like saying nice things and not bad things. But I also know that people's money is valuable. I'm not just going to say nice things because often when I say nice things or try to look on the bright side and try to pump up, maybe a mechanic that I think is interesting, but the game itself I don't think looks interesting. Sometimes I've seen that misconstrued. So, and then I go, no, I don't think you should get it. I just am a nice person, as evidenced by my coverage of oceans. How nice am I? Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm a horrible, ugly individual. Well, I know I am that, but anyway, we're getting off on a tangent. Let's take a look at the Adventures of Tenessee James. It was pitched to me by my patron as a combination of Ink and Gold, Diamant / Escape the Curse of the Temple, and a simplified Lost Ruins of Arnak as like a nice, welcoming family game. And Ink and Gold is so good. I love Ink and Gold. Ink and Gold is so dumb because you're just like, yeah, I'm going to keep diving into that temple and trying to get as many jewels as possible. So if Tenessee James gives me that, well, maybe you should go out and get it. Honestly, Tenessee James is such a compelling name that I have forgotten the character's name of Indiana Jones that I just remembered right now, because Tenessee James might be better. 15 seconds. That's how long it took me to forget or remember Indiana Jones's name. Okay, I'm sorry. New Hampshire Thompson blows them both out of the water. Missouri Williams, fine. Utah Smith, fine. They need some names like New Hampshire Thompson. Oh, baby. You might be a new character coming in. Okay, give me more. I want more. South Dakota Clark, fine. Pennsylvania Johnson. Pennsylvania Johnson is also really good. Oklahoma Adams. Let me zoom in. Yeah, there we go. Oklahoma Adams. West Virginia Wilson. Yeah, okay. Texas Moore. Not doing it for me. Rhode Island Lewis is doing it for me, though. I love this. Kickstarter inclusive. Yeah. So you get the bonus. What a great phrasing. Courtesy of New Hampshire Thompson. Not sure why the rulebook is so far down the page. Click on the rulebook title to view the rulebook, and then rulebook's at the bottom of the page. Well, just get me to the dang rulebook, Tennessee James. Shipping is obviously going to be expensive for this one. 24 Canadian, 20 US. Well, I mean, that's standard then. 15 US to get to the US. And 40, so it's 55 US total. 55 US or 79 Canadian, which is, that's too much even for my love of New Hampshire Thompson. I do like that archaeologist team member companion. You get 3 team members on your team, and on every space in this map there's going to be tiles laid face down. Why you would need additional maps, I'm not quite sure. Well, for different layouts, right? Different branching paths. If it's going to be a straight line, people are going to rush towards the tiles. And on the tiles will either be traps or treasures. If it's a trap, you have to play cards to defeat it. If it's a treasure, you just get to keep it. And if you can't defeat the trap, well, then you lose a team member and then you lose actions. Moving forward, that's, that seems fun. It's got a great art style. I don't know if you've noticed. Oh, and this is fun. This is the Escape the Temple comparison. Because once 10 victory points for the treasure have been collectively gained by people, then the temple starts to collapse and rubble starts to expand outwards every turn, and so you have to run to the exit. So you're pushing your luck on if you can even stay in the temple or if you're going to get crushed by rubble, and if you're locked in at the end of the game. Yeah, I mean, like, there's a little battling system in here, too, that, doesn't make me excited. Doesn't make me want to take my clothes off and run screaming through the streets, as I hope most rulebooks will make me do. And yes, it was the rulebook who made me do it, officer, okay? I couldn't help myself. Please, stop giving me these public indecency tickets. That's all you get, right? Just a ticket. Again, so $79 Canadian, that's a bit too much for what it is. 55 US, though, might be okay for you. Like, this is something that I would love to see as a mass market thing, and I think the Ink and Gold Escape the Cursed Temple comparison is very apt. I haven't played Lost Ruins of Arnak. I don't see the comparison there, though, from what I know of it. It just seems like this is way too basic to be able to be compared to that. Oh, New Hampshire Thompson. Anyway, that's not going to fund, but I do want to give it a bit of love because legitimately, I would play this game and I would have fun with this game more than 1, 2, 3. Okay, not that one. Not that one. Maybe 4. Probably not that one on par. Honestly, no, not that one, and not that one. But what was that? 4? Maybe 4? I'd enjoy this more than half of what we've covered already. So, yeah, legit. Anyway, that finishes Thursday, December 1st. So, if you have a family, I don't want to tell you what happened to mine. You all know by now that they were on vacation in Florida recently. It's not where I was expecting either. Yeah, because bears are known to love Florida. They're just sitting there in their Hawaiian shirts. That's how they get you. It doesn't matter if they're offering you free pina coladas, Aunt Judith. Don't get into the truck. There was no hope for her. Anyway, that finishes December 1st at 1:59 a.m. Moving along to Copan, Dying City. Fight for your family's legacy in a city destined to fall. Kind of feels like me. What we were just talking about in this worker placement Euro game with a reverse difficulty curve. I think I'm tired today because I'm more cynical than usual. Maybe. I want to show my skill on the Sacred Ball Court. And see, I hate this already on the side. An Acolyte pledge that's telling you $45. I was like, whoa, 63 Canadian? This could be cool. No, the Obsidian pledge is actually what it's going to be. This is literally just saying, this is the exclusives. If you want to wait for your retail copy, you can pay $60, $45, 45 euros for the exclusives in the campaign. Just, ugh. By backing the campaign now, you're getting a discount of over 30% off the recommended retail price. Recommended retail price, $70. Pledge, €60. In what world is that 30% off? No world for me. Come on, Copan. You look fun. It's another one of these games, and we'll get into it in a second once I read through the rulebook and can summarize that for you. But the overview is one where there are a bunch of different areas where you can get points. And I like those games. I like feeling like there are all these options and different pathways to pursue and wanting to dabble in everything or wanting to specialize in everything and not having enough time and only having enough time to specialize in one thing. Again, I like this sort of checklist. Good job. Exactly how many rounds you'll play can vary greatly depending on the difficulty level of the event card you've chosen. I like that a lot. Rulebook halfway down the page. I do love seeing more of this stuff. I was just talking about that last week. Stuff that you can build out of cardboard. Yeah, there's two things that I like about this resource generation, which I think is really cool. You can place a court tile down, and you're going to get that resource plus any resources that it's touching orthogonally that you have already placed. So right here, for example, you're going to get a red and a green and a yellow, but there are also these decline tracks, which anytime you take a resource, it gets moved one to the left as the resources slowly become less and less in plentiful supply. And that is, I'll put it above my head. There we go. Now you can see the decline tracks. Boom, boom, boom. As it moves along further over. And that is, I think, just really exciting to me. The idea that it's going to get harder as you go along. And that's what they're talking about with the reverse difficulty curve. That's what they mean when they're talking about that. I think that I like that a lot. Then on your action phase, you can move your totem, your player marker, onto a spot and take that action. And if somebody else is there, you kind of push them off. So you see how there's 3 spots. And the reason there are 3 spots is because you can also wait. You can just stay on that action and take that action again. It doesn't necessarily feel like worker placement as much as action selection because you're pushing people out of the way, right? But I guess you have workers and you're putting them out, and there are specific tiers of how you're doing things. And if you wait, you can get to the ×1, ×2. Some of your totems have a resource on them. Some of your totems have a victory point on them. And you can get those things when placing at various locations as well. You can recruit characters at the ball court, because of course you can. Who wouldn't want to recruit Mr. Leopard over there? Oh, I'm hiding him, aren't I? I'm in a, well, that seems to be a bit too close. I don't want to. There we go. That's a much better view. Not that the other view wasn't good, but let me tell you, this is more of a PG view. I also am 50% attracted to this game because of the Road to El Dorado when they play this Mayan basketball with their little ball and they're popping it over so that they don't die because they are pretending to be gods. God, that's a fun movie. But yeah, a lot of varied actions that you can do. This looks fun. It's $60, 83 Canadian plus shipping. 14 to 18 to get to Canada, 13 to 16 to get to the US, 78 possibly euros, 107 Canadian. That's tough. That's tough, right? You got to think about Kickstarter prices, and it shouldn't be tough. It should be just a no, right? Like, this is a $60 game. I agree, this is a $60 game. I hope it gets a retail distribution, and I hope I can get it at a retail store that I know, but this to me feels like a $60 game, and paying 107 would feel weird. Then again, it's all about what you value. Someone made a great comment last video that said, hey, it's weird that you talk about value all the time, because is a $40 game worth it when you as an actor, people could pay a higher ticket price to come and see you. You're giving me too much credit, really. People don't pay much to see me at all. I just have to give away all my comps. But the question there is interesting to me, and it's true, right? Like, how do we ascribe value to a game? Perhaps it's a longer conversation. For me, it's just a gut feeling. For me, it's based around the current market value for other things of similar feeling, or of similar complexity, similar component count, similar theme and draw, and even box size that you would get to the table that you're expecting to pay this much. Cheapy old me says, well, if they all exist at this current market price, why should I pay an additional price for the same thing, especially when we are spoiled for choice in the board gaming hobby right now? We really are. If you think about cool, complex Euros with a Mayan theme, you've got all of Teotihuacan, you've got Tiwanaku, you've got Solkin, any of the other T series, whatever they are, but I'm sure there are more out there that I just can't think of right now that again exist at that sort of lower price point. So what about this is special? Like, this one looks good and likely will be my pick of the week for me. I think it will. Maybe I can continue this conversation there, but we're having it now. What makes it special enough to take that extra step, to pay for that shipping, to go the extra mile, and to back it now when you could purchase something that's already out there, been reviewed by multiple sources, whose final copy has been reviewed? It's a really tough call, and I think we forget that a lot in Kickstarter, and we exist in this Kickstarter vacuum of, well, those are the Kickstarter prices, and that's what it is. And while I appreciate what Kickstarter is able to do and is able to have these pre-orders, and we can bring games that may not otherwise see the light of day, and maybe that's the reason, to be part of that flagship backing, to put your money into something that you care about, to put your money into something you want to see continue, right? which is a very valuable thing. I mean, existing as somebody on YouTube who has a Patreon, I would be a hypocrite if I didn't resonate with that model, but I also am a consumer and a cheap consumer, a consumer on a budget, rather, let's say. And so that's why I kind of ascribe that value and do compare it to things that I don't have, because I could go out to that store and purchase something for cheaper and likely have a very similar experience. So yeah, it's just interesting. Let me know what you think. If that sparks any thoughts, drop them in the comments below. And subscribe while you're at it. Come on. It's scientifically proven that if you don't subscribe to Room and Board, you'll die lonely and afraid. And if you do subscribe to Room and Board, you'll get to watch me die lonely and afraid, and that'll convince you to go the other route. Moving on to Werewolf the Apocalypse, Retaliation, a world of darkness, visceral, and violent role-playing dungeon crawler for 1 to 4 players. This is what people have been talking about, or at least saying, I'm going to save my money for Werewolf. This has raised a lot of money, and I'm excited to check this out. Canadian, based in Montreal, let's go. I mean, the video gets you hyped, even though it says it's a one-of-a-kind dungeon crawling experience that focuses on story, which, as we know, is every dungeon crawling experience moving forward from Kickstarter. I gotta get myself ready for the sticker shock. No, 150 Canadian, 110, 120 US, 110. Is it bad I wanted it to be 100? Ah, I was already thinking in my head, oh, could this be the deal of the Kickstarter century? Kickstarter of the year! No, it's ordinary. Oh, and this is how they get you with all the different tribes, the promise of that different asymmetrical experience. This is a campaign page that makes it easy to push the back button and get excited without thinking about what the gameplay will actually be. I do like this character creation, though, that it's not set, that you can mix and match. That's always fun. In addition to this, more customization of character is awesome. And it's so interesting that they're going with the character sheet route. Often you'll see anything with stats, right? You could just have cube trackers, but they're going with like a pen and paper character sheet, which at least for me gives me a very distinct feel, and leaning more towards that RPG element and realizing, oh yeah, this is going to be very story driven. I do like what they're trying to simulate here in this varying branching dialogue trees. What do you say? How do they react? Can you convince people? It's very, very Telltale-esque, but it's also something that I feel is very video game-esque and requires, again, that additional investment of energy if you're going to play this game. I talked about that in 5 Reasons You Shouldn't Back. The amount of energy that you do have to put into a game is going to be higher for something like this than if you just want something to relax. Or maybe not. Maybe it's better for solo because you can just read the book by yourself. But if you're playing with somebody else, then you're going to want to create those sort of characters and really role play it up, which I like that there is a heavy emphasis on role playing because it's telling you what you're going to get. Based on Vampires the Masquerade Chapters game system, Werewolf the Apocalypse Retaliation is focused on brutal combat. Honestly, this is another one of those campaigns that I think is doing really well in describing what it is. Rulebook was halfway down the page, probably. Yeah, over halfway. But I don't mind as much. I've devoted a lot of effort into highlighting the key features, and I feel like those key highlights are exciting, right? They get you excited to play the game. You're gonna have to deal with a 44-page rule book, but feels friggin' standard nowadays, doesn't it? What's also really interesting to me, and this is again why you should always check the rule book, and even just looking through the little contents, you see 2 double-sided tiles. That's it. That's all you need for the board. You're going to have 2 double-sided tiles, and you can play it on this hex-based system, which I don't know if that would get stale or not. I don't think so, right? Like, mostly you're going to be putting obstacles and terrain and shifting things up in that way. What's the difference of just having 2 big hex-based tiles that you can put terrain on, or oodles and oodles of different tiles that you have to sort through and set up that are all squares that you move one space at a time, right? It's the same thing. I like this because it hopefully bodes well for setup and teardown, lets you just get right into the action, and again focusing on the story too with the dialogue and looking at things. It says it's 30 minutes per player, and I think it's also worth noting that these sorts of games you're going to play with, I don't know, I think 2 people are probably best. I don't think you ever want to play a narrative game with the maximum number of people because narration inherently will take time, right? And it'll also be like kind of an escape room game if you're going to have dialogue choices. Well, one person's going to have the dialogue choices with that character, and they're not going to be there to talk to, or you've already experienced what the set book of dialogue is, so you're not going to talk to them again. Yeah, it's a pretty good rule book. Like, it reads very well. It's laid out pretty clearly. You're just going to have to go through it, but it's not like going to break your brain. I like the detail in here. There's going to be a lot of fiddly-ish because you have to follow all the steps on all the NPCs' turns and figuring out their targeting. And basically, in order to attack, you're going to play cards, and then you're going to have to do a skill check. So there's going to be a lot of skill checks on this, which makes sense, again, because it is this RPG-based system. So 110 US, but plus shipping. Oh, with 32 Canadian shipping, that's actually pretty good. 34 Canadian. Like, for me, it's 183 for the base game. Way too much, right? For someone in the US, it would be like 130-ish to get to your door. But they're also saying, here are the potential taxes you might face. So add that to your pledge as well. I like that they're upfront about it. Anyway, yeah, looks solid. If you're interested in that, it finishes Thursday, December 1st at 7 p.m. Moving along to The Last of Us, Escape the Dark, a board game with a dark twist on the critically acclaimed video game series. This is by the same company that brought you Escape the Dark Tower, which was on our Spooky Games deathmatch, and it made it through one round, which I was surprised about. For me, this is not the Last of Us game that I was hoping for, or the droids I was looking for. I'm not drawn in personally by the black and white of the art style, and the Escape the Dark system, it's this chapter system. So when you're escaping the Dark Castle, for example, you're just going through these various chapter cards, and there's a little mini game that you have to play each one. And here, that's a similar thing that's going to happen. You're going to go to each of these different locations, and when you get to a location, you're going to flip over a new chapter card, and you're going to have something new to deal with. And so all of these things will be coming up as you go from location to location, and just trying to survive. But I don't have much faith that the choices are going to be that challenging, I guess, which is not what their model is. They want to bring people into the board gaming hobby. They want to make it accessible. If you're not a board gamer and you're a video gamer and you like Last of Us, this actually might be one to jump on board if you think it looks cool. I think for me personally, there's not a ton of complexity. Look at those clicker miniatures, though. 25 clicker miniatures with the uptick from 65 pounds to 99 pounds. I could see why people would be in on that. I think people are going in on this for the minis more than the actual gameplay. Let's be real here. They don't really care to tell you how to play until halfway down the page. But it's just a lot of skill checks. That's what it is. I think if you want skill checks with more of a story, go for Werewolf. Because what is it, 158 for the collector's edition this? Or you could go for Werewolf for 180-ish Canadian? Yeah, because after shipping, it'll probably be around the same. I'd go for Werewolf, guaranteed, over this. Good campaign page, though, once you finally get to how to play. It's really just, oh, hey, you can do some cool things and do a skill check. Or you can do some cool things but you gotta roll a skill check for it. Hey, you wanna fight? Make sure you roll some fight skill checks. Shipping, $16.95 to the US, $21.95 to Canada. Just call it 22. Like, don't give me this 95 garbage when you're already doing a 99. Like, how many more little upsells do we need? Just give us straight numbers. Come on. It's an estimated shipping. So you're telling me your estimated shipping ends in a 95? No, it doesn't. It ends in a 00 amount. And you're just too chicken to scare people away. At least just be honest about it. Like, don't give me that garbage. I think this looks fine. I think it will be a game definitely for some people who like The Last of Us and want to just roll some dice in an easy world. For me, it's just way too simple, and I would like something a little bit more exciting than a bunch of skill checks over and over again. You know, it's very clear that people were looking for it, and it's a cool art style, so that's cool. I'm glad it exists. That finishes Friday, December 2nd at 4 p.m. Moving along to Ceres, a sci-fi worker placement game where you play a space corporation, mine asteroids, lobby the Mars Council, and enlarge the Ceres colony. That sounds like music to my ears, honestly. This is going to be interesting because this is $60, like €6, like Copan. Ceres is also a sweet little worker placement with a bunch of different stuff that you can do. One of my favorite genres. How silly is this? What a silly plastic piece that I immediately want. And this is really cool. This is what I love. This is absolutely what I love to see. All backers who have also backed any of our last 3 campaigns, Pursuit of Happiness Big Bucks, and Nostalgia expansions, Rush MD, ICU expansion, and Rush MD, you can get a $5 coupon to be redeemed within the Pledge Manager. It can be spent to purchase add-ons. I mean, presumably it can be spent to subsidize your shipping as well. That's how you can subsidize shipping, right? Like, what a great idea. Now just give me the rule book, please. I mean, this one looks fun. This looks solid. Ugh, there's the shipping, a 19 to 23, 22 to 26 for Canada. So again, it is in that $107 range. Is it good enough to warrant that? But what I really like, and what's odd, it kind of touches upon it, but it kind of doesn't. You have your sort of main worker actions that you're going to be placing people out on and doing things on the main board. And then you have your own little buildings that you're building, which are your own private actions that only you can take, but you're using communal workers. So blue can go on blue buildings, red can go on red buildings, etc. And that idea that you have that push and pull feels really neat. That does feel really neat to me. You've also got this little asteroid place where you're throwing people for points. Who cares? It spins and shifts and it doesn't really matter. It feels like it doesn't really matter. I haven't played it, but right, it feels like it doesn't really matter. But this aspect of controlling and seeing how many workers are going to be added to the communal supply next time, that feels exciting to me. And seeing how the game can grow and grow. And who doesn't love a good research track, right? So this looks fun. Again, $60 is a good price, I think, for this type of game. $60 US, which is 81 Canadian, plus shipping is 80 US. A good enough price for this kind of game? I don't know. But it's raised a bunch of money, and I can see why. I don't have anything bad to say about this. I think it looks really fun. I'd love to try it out. So if you're interested in that, check it out. That's Friday, December 2nd at 4:30 p.m. Is this better than Copan? Well, I guess we'll have to wait through one more campaign to see what my pick of the week is going to be. Our final campaign is Elestrals trading card game, a new trading card game developed by A Drive. Look, it just got an influx of money, a couple backers, and a couple $1,000. As many trading card games go, I'm not going to really touch upon this one that much because I hate trading card games. I do. I think they're dumb. I think get a game that will give you a full experience in a box and not like 20% of an experience that's just going to incentivize you to run out and buy more money. Buy more money. Yeah, I wish I could buy more money. I'd buy it low and I'd sell it high. No, to spend more money, right? You get a single starter deck for $25. What good is that going to do you? Nothing, because it's a new trading card game and nobody's going to be playing it. So your single deck is worth nothing. That's what it's worth. Is it worth $25? No, it's worth nothing. 2 starter decks of choice is the actual thing that you might want. Oh, and you get 1 free deck, all 5 starter decks of choice. Plus, why don't you just get a whole bunch of packs of cards that you don't know if they're going to be fun or not? Trading cards are stupid, and that's all I'll say about it. But I understand that people like them, and the art on this looks fun, but I'm not going to even bother looking into it because it's just going to be another 2-player head-to-head card game that isn't Yu-Gi-Oh!
So it's just like Duel Monsters.
Exactly. And why would you get another 2-player head-to-head card game when you could just invest in Yu-Gi-Oh? Sponsored by Yu-Gi-Oh! Unaffiliated. That's, I mean, it's not, I'm not being paid off by Big Yugi to say this. I'm not being paid off by Big Blue Eyes. That was my nickname in high school. Anyway, if you're interested in wasting your money, check it out. That's Sunday, December 4th at 9 p.m. And that's it. But before we go, I want to give an honorable shout out to Gamefound. Gamefound bringing us nothing. Ooh, is this finally going to come after like a year and a half of pretending it was going to be there? Who knows? We'll check that out later. Gamefound, we can say, view all active projects. Kaboom. And what I do love, way to go, Gamefound. There is now this lovely thing that shows you your filters, and you can just click out of the late pledge to see the actual ones that are crowdfunding right now. There are a couple that are finishing up. 3 Kisses. No, it's called like Triskies or something. Frisky Triskies, I think. Trikes? Kids on Trikes. Their whole pitch is that this game doesn't have a battery in it. So you can tell they've really hit their target market here on Gamefound. Legendary Tea Farmer also is so far away from its goal that it's not going to fund. So, we're not talking about either of them other than Trixie Chris's. Trixie Chris's, yeah, that's what it is. If anybody wants to make a game called Trixie Chris's and include me in it, you can't include my likeness without talking to me first and paying me $1 million in royalties. Or you can probably include my likeness and call it Trixie Chris's and just make it a good game. Just make it a good game. If it's a good game, hey, if it's a good game, you can do it. If it's a bad game, you must pay me lots of money. So we'll see. Anyway, that's it for the week. Thanks everybody for sticking with me. But before we end, of course, we have a pick for me and a pick for you. The pick for me being the one that I am the most interested in, and the pick for you being the thing that I think you should back. Or if you do back and you are excited about it, I think it will deliver on its promise. And this is a tough call. You know, I'm debating between two of them. But I am going to make my pick for me. Ceres. I thought it was going to be Copan. I like a lot of the elements that's happening in Copan. I like the different stuff that you can do, but the give and take of the worker placement and the engine building that you can stick cards under your existing buildings to make them more powerful, or so that you can activate them with different worker colors. I think that looks cool. Really tight between those two. But again, I'll say the same thing that I said with Copan. Uh, it, it may not be enough to be worth that price point, but I think Ceres is closer to being worth that price point with the shipping added than Copan is, for me, at least, for my personal interest. And then the pick for you, I have a pretty definitive idea that this is going to be the pick for you, and it's going to be Werewolf The Apocalypse Retaliation. This is the pick for you. I know it's expensive, so don't just go out and buy it because I said it was the pick for you. You don't need another story-driven dungeon crawler. You do not need one. Trust me, you don't. But this is becoming the pick for you, even with its a really expensive price tag, because I am really impressed in terms of it knows what it is, and I feel it is going to deliver on those promises. That's why I phrased it that way, so I could make this the pick for you. I really do think it will deliver on the promises in the campaign page, and that is becoming increasingly more important to me, because you want to get the game that you were marketed. Oh, see, 8 large terrain tiles. I friggin' blew it on when I was talking about only 2. This adds so much more variability. No, they're gonna be the same. Look at them. They're all separated by hexes. Might as well be 2, unless you're extending it. But I like that there's 8, because then there can be at least 3. Anyway, sidetrack. That just makes me more secure in this choice. You don't need the expansion packs. Like, just get the base ones. The expansion packs are just additional tribes and additional variability, and you're not going to need it. But I think all of these promises, all of these moving gift promises that it's giving you, it feels like it is capable of delivering on them. And if I didn't have an embargo against, anything with a story moving forward, I might consider this. Again, way too expensive, right? Like, it also is in that premium price point that I don't know if you should pull the trigger on it. You should obviously only pull the trigger if you're like, wow, this is really, really neat. Like, everything that you see gets you fired up. I think that's what you need to do for this one. It needs to be like, check, check, check as you're going down. If it's doing that, then yeah, go for it, because I think it will deliver on those things. If you're just kind of like, oh, I like dungeon crawlers, don't, right? I think if you're really interested in the story elements, in the branching dialogue paths, that's the kind of thing that I would approach this as. Yeah, so those are my 2 picks. That's my pick for me, pick for you. Thanks for being here. Stay tuned tomorrow to find out the results of that giveaway. I wanted to talk about something else. Maybe I've forgotten. Maybe it was just the train wreck of the abusive and toxic work environment that Pandasaurus is, when I've been saying, I love all Pandasaurus games for the past year. But I think I still do. I saw just to touch upon that, because that was in the news last week, and I kind of forgot to mention it. I saw a Facebook post written by somebody who I know who'd worked on a bunch of their games, and they were like, yeah, like, here's my story. I didn't want to talk about it because they said, we'll sue you, but they like removed him from all of their Slack things except for the thing that he was working on. And we're like, we've been bad-mouthed publicly by one of our employees, and we won't tolerate that. And they said that to all their other employees, and being a shitty boss is shitty, and that sucks. I don't know if it's worth a boycott of Pandasaurus. In fact, this person who worked for them and no longer does says that he didn't think that you should boycott it, because there's a lot of people who worked very hard to get those things together and were forced to work very hard, whipped into the ground to work very hard in a very, toxic way. But maybe that's why Pandasaurus can afford such cheap games, because they pay their people not enough money and make them work overnight. I don't know. But I figured I'd just bring it up in case you didn't know about it. I still like Dinosaur Island Roaring Right. Still like Brew. So I don't know. I don't know how to feel. Let me know how you feel. be our sort of talking point. I think it's shitty, and I'm glad they've been called out about it, and hopefully they will stop being crappy, but it's good to know when backing something. Oh yeah, that's kind of the point I was going to make. I talk a lot about price, right? I talk a lot about getting things for a good deal and seeing these things come to light with Pandasaurus, and then reflecting upon my own sort of praise of them being able to put out such a good product for such a low price is what I usually consistently say about them. Maybe there's some merit to that. Maybe I am too harsh in terms of the amount that we do spend, right? Or the amount that I'm willing to spend, or condemning things for being too expensive, right? I think I am in support of people earning a living wage, doing the things that they love. I unfortunately am just not in the financial position to always support things and have to be discerning with the amount that I spend, or be smart about getting things for cheaper at a retail price and not paying an exorbitant amount of money, because there's always a range, right? There's always a moment where you're like, okay, now you're just really trying to capitalize on neoprene mats not costing that much to make, yet charging a super premium for them. All of those extras that people want that don't cost that much, but that are inflated as like the best margins, because as we know, profit margins in the board gaming industry are still pretty thin, even with the prices going up. And I think we see prices going up, and I can gripe about prices going up, but in the end, like, I want people to be successful and be producing good games. And so if you've got the money and it excites you and you're not a penny pincher like me, well, I hope you love them. And for penny pinchers like me, well, you found your person, and we're gonna go all the way together. Anyway, that's it. Those are kind of just my little thoughts to end us off, talking about worth. What is something worth? What do we value? How do we spend our money? It's an ever question in our capitalist society that I don't have the answers this week, but I will next week. So be sure to tune in next week. I'll have all the answers for anything that you need, but that'll be coming next week, definitely. But thank you for sticking around. Let me know what you are excited about. Let me know what you're backing this week as well. I love hearing from you. Once again, my name's Chris George, and I don't have a catchphrase. Not even this one. Or maybe I do have a catchphrase. Maybe I'm just not telling. Somebody put that in a comment recently. I appreciate it. There were some good catchphrase suggestions there, and I will reject all of them. Hope you're having a wonderful day, except to two of you, where I hope you're having just a fine day. You know, I hope your day is completely average. I hope nothing noteworthy happens. I hope if you're filming 1 second of a day, you end up filming your empty plate because you've forgotten and it's just been a very ho-hum of a day. And then I hope you're able to get a game to the table at night or watch a really cool show, and it just like puts a nice cap on a relaxing, normal, average day of being human. That's what I hope for two of you. For the rest of you, hope you have a great day. But for two of you, have that one instead. Bye.